Welcome, this is Diego Accord here in the Ramblings of a Bored Guy, and today I'm going to be talking about Tokyo Xtreme Racer. So, this picture is a picture of my collection of the Tokyo Xtreme Racer games, um, and they are also called Shotoku Battle. That's the name in Japan. Most people that may know about the series probably know about those games in the very middle, the PlayStation 2 games, Tokyo Extreme Racer Zero, and maybe they know about Tokyo Extreme Racer 3. But um, so anyway, a new game was recently announced, and it makes 18 years since the last game came out, which was this game on 360. Um, and it'll be at least 19 until it actually comes out because the game's supposed to be due in 2025. I'm going to talk about the history of these games and my personal history. Um, so I do have them pretty much in order, um, but also, as you see, I have the Japanese versions of the games as well as the English versions. So the first game here, Shotoku Battle 94. First game in the series. I've not played it, but of course, obviously, I own it. Same thing here with the sequel, and that would be Shotoku Battle 2. And then the series moved on to the PlayStation with Shotoku Battle. And Shotoku Battle was released in the US as Tokyo Highway Battle, which you'll see two games over. So then, and that was released by a company called Jaleco. And then you have Shotoku Battle R. And so Tokyo Highway Battle is I did own this game as a kid growing up. Now, at the time, I did not know anything about the series or anything like that, but it was just a car game, so therefore I had it. So then you've got the R version, which I'm gonna guess is upgrades. I've never played it before. And then on Saturn, you have Shotoku Battle 97. I have not played that game. And so the series then moves on to Dreamcast with Tokyo Extreme Racer. And that is also called Shotoku Battle. So that means that there are two games called Shotoku Battle. The first game on Dreamcast, and then the first game on PlayStation. Even on the spines, you can see it says the same thing. But they're completely different games. Now, to me, I wanted Tokyo Extreme Racer when it first came out. Again, I didn't know anything about any kind of series that it was part of or anything like that. But the reason I wanted that game was because on the front cover, there is an Eclipse racing a Supra. And, the game was out in 1999, 2 years before the Fast and the Furious, and the Eclipse was my favorite car when that game came out. And the fact that it had it on the cover, and it was specifically a second gen 2GB, so facelift Eclipse with the 5-spoke convex wheels from the GS and the GST. And that's the reason I wanted to play the game in the first place. But, I fell in love with it. It's a simple game. You're just driving on the C1 loop. And even, when I was playing that game, I did not know that it was a real place anyway. I just thought, okay, well, I guess it's probably a Tokyo-like kind of setting or whatnot, because that's typically how video games worked. So yeah, but it was fun. It has my favorite music in the series. That's the music that is playing right now. Is Tokyo Extreme Racer 1 music. And it is also the only game, at least of the 3D era, that is 30 frame or that is 60 frames per second. Because even the game on 360 is 30 frames per second. So, amazing game. And the sense of speed, just because it's 60 frames per second, sense of speed is just a lot better than the other games that come after it. So anyway, that's TXR. And then Tokyo Xtreme Racer 2. That game came out on my birthday of the year that it came out. And speaking of birthdays, I spent my last birthday in Osaka, which was pretty awesome. And it, just thinking that this game came out on a birthday also reminded me that. And those would probably be the only two birthdays that actually mattered. Just because an actual game that I like came out on one of them, and then I was in Japan on the other one. So anyway, Tokyo Xtreme Racer 2. It has a massive visual upgrade over Tokyo Xtreme Racer 1. It's pretty insane. And it was the first game that I was like wowed by the way the cars looked. It was something like GT. GT 1 and 2 were out. They looked good for the time, but, with PlayStation with all that blockiness, it really couldn't compare to what Tokyo Xtreme Racer 2 looked like. Now, you could argue with Tokyo Xtreme Racer 1, because the car models in that game are super basic, but 2, huge upgrade. And you can also drive on a lot more of the Tokyo Highway. It was also this game that let me, that is when I discovered that the actual highway that they used was the real thing. So every turn, every exit, and all that stuff was real, and I only learned that with the second game. I think it shows you the exit names and all this stuff, so, I learned that. And then, of course, if you've checked out the channel any, you know that I've been over there and I've driven on the Shudo Expressway. Anyway, so I can definitely say that they matched everything, and it's pretty crazy. So, anyway, you pay for the visual upgrade by getting half the frame rate as the first game, which is unfortunate, but, it is what it is. So then the series moves to the PlayStation. And also, with Tokyo Xtreme Racer 2, or Shotoku Battle 2, that means that there is a second game titled Shotoku Battle 2. So the second game on Super Nintendo, as well as the second game on Dreamcast, have the same name, and of course they are vastly different games, just like the PlayStation Shotoku Battle and the Dreamcast Shotoku Battle. So that's interesting little tidbit there. Two games with the same names. So anyway, you've got Zero on PlayStation 2, and this is the game that most people are most familiar with. I mean, it came out in 2001, like right around the Fast and Furious, or right after it, or something like that. And of course, way more people had a PlayStation 2 than a Dreamcast. So it is what it was. Now, Zero was supposed to come out on Dreamcast, apparently, and I think that had that happened, it might have been the best version of any of these games. Because Tokyo Xtreme Racer 2 and Zero are the closest two of these games out of any of them. Same amount of track opens up, but there's some, newer cars in Zero because it came out later. There's cars that aren't in 2, such as the GDB and the CT9A, and some other things like that. But if you look at these games graphically, Tokyo Xtreme Racer 2 looks a lot cleaner and smoother than Zero, and the car models, I would say, look better as well in 2 compared to Zero. However, all of the detail looks a lot better in Zero. The trackside details, and especially the wheels on the cars, look a lot better in Zero. And you've got reflections that are more realistic than what you have in Tokyo Xtreme Racer 2. So, I don't know if that's something that they could have done on Dreamcast, if Dreamcast would have had that if it got zero, but the cleaner picture due to anti-aliasing, which the PlayStation 2 didn't have. Um, if Zero would have had all the visual upgrades, the better shadows or better reflections, and so on and so forth on Dreamcast, then it probably would have been the best game in the series. Um, but it was never to be because the Dreamcast was killed before that game came out. So anyway, it was on 2. Now, personally, I don't like Zero because of the speed of the game. Not the frame rate, but the actual sense of speed is just real weird. So, in Tokyo Xtreme Racer 2, the Skyline R34 can get 642 or 643 horsepower maximum. In Zero, it can get like 1200 or 1300. Yet, if you play the games back to back, they feel like it's the same thing. Like they feel like they've got the same amount of power. So either there's something up with the conversions, because Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3 actually does have a glitch with the conversions from what we use here versus there, which actually keeps you from being able to beat the game under normal circumstances. So I feel like the speedometer, using kilometers or mileage or miles per hour, like there's something up with that, because the car, like I said, it can have 2 times the power, but it still seems to accelerate the same if you go from game to game. But anyway, the intro video that's in Tokyo Xtreme Racer Zero is fucking amazing. You gotta watch that game. Come on. So anyway, but it is, like I said, it is my least favorite game overall. And then you've got Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3, or Shotoku Battle 01. Now, in the US, this game released as a $20 budget title. When it comes to content, you have less cars than 2 and 0, but even more track is available. So the version of Tokyo that's in it does have more routes open. And then you also get to go to Nagoya and Osaka as well. So you got 3 different cities you go to, and more track in Tokyo, and more of the highway in Tokyo. However, the problem with this game is the fact that they licensed the cars finally, and with that, they had to take so many of them out. So in the previous games, the cars are just going by their chassis codes or whatever. So, your Civic Type R is an EK9, your R34 is a BN R34, BCN R33, FD 3S, and if they don't know the codes, like the Viper GTS, it'll be like the VGTS or something. So, but there's a lot of cars, and you can rename them in the game. So obviously, if you know what it's called, you're just gonna go with that. So anyway, less cars, since they had to, license it. Honda's definitely not in the game, and a front-wheel drive Honda is where I always love to start off in racing games when they're available. So that kind of sucks for me. And then the other thing is the traffic in the game. So other games have varied traffic. However, Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3 only has these yellow vans. And I think it's also to make it seem less like it's a street race, which is probably a condition of having, the cars being licensed as well. And that brings me to an issue that there may be with the newest game, which um, the description of that game says that it's a future Tokyo that's like kind of like blocked off or whatever. So I think in order to skate around the game being like street racing on the highway with the car licenses and whatnot, it may have to be empty because that's the thing. It feels empty when you're on these roads in Tokyo Extreme Racer 3 because of the drone cars or lack of them, and it kind of takes you out of it. And I think that's going to be a possible issue with the new game. So anyway, back to these games. So Tokyo Extreme Racer 3, though, it is still fun, regardless of that issue or the issues that it does have. Um, and then the next game in the series would be Shotoku Battle on PSP, Shotoku Battle Zone of Control. Now, this game, I owned this game when it first came out in Japanese. Because we had a store that did imports. Now I didn't know the game existed. I just went to the store one day for whatever, and I saw the Shotoku Battle logo on a PSP game. So I turned the case around, and sure enough, it says Genki, and then also you see the screenshots, and it's cars with energy bars, which is the thing about Tokyo Extreme Racer. So I'm like, that is definitely Tokyo Extreme Racer. So, I bought the game, no hesitation, of course. And it's pretty fun. I didn't like the PSP as a system. I adopted it too early, so all the games I played were like shitty versions of PS2 games. But this game was good. Now, of course, this is not my original copy of the game. None of these are, because everything was stolen back in 2001 or 2011, like the week that Skyrim came out. And my original Tokyo Extreme Racer 1 and 2 and Dreamcast were stolen. And Tokyo Extreme Racer 3 and 0 for PS2. I had those four, as well as Import Tuner Challenge on Xbox. I had, like, those games were all stolen. Now, of course, my original PSP copy, I got rid of the PSP a long time ago, like well before that happened. I just didn't miss that system. So anyway, Street Supremacy is the American version. Now, who is it? Not Genki, but Crave Entertainment they owned the name of Tokyo Extreme Racer, and they were the ones that released those games in the US. However, they did not release Shotoku Battle for the PSP in the US. It was Konami. So therefore Konami could not call it Tokyo Extreme Racer. So they called it Street Supremacy, apparently. Now, I don't know when that game came out in relation to the Japanese version, but if you look at the front of the cover, I would have, even, the side of it, like, it just says Street Supremacy. Like, that doesn't tell me anything. Now, if I ever noticed it, I may have looked at it to see, like, oh, Street Supremacy, is it like a Street Fighter ripoff? That's the first thing that probably would have came to mind. Or it must be like a shitty fighting game or something. But anyway, it was very, very easy to overlook in the game store. I worked at GameStop between 06 and 08, so I should have seen this game, but it just didn't stand out to me. So I don't even know. Same thing with the Import Tuner Challenge. So I didn't buy this game until years after it came out. I didn't know that Shotoku Battle had made its way onto the Xbox 360. And of course, you wouldn't even expect that that system would get this game. Final game in the outing, or the final outing of the series, I should say, so far. came out in 2006. Now, I'm sure that I didn't play this game until like 2009 because the front cover has a riced out Supra, and because of that, I always looked at it like, oh, it must be some kind of Fast and Furious, because there were some Fast and Furious games that had come out that were shitty as hell around that time frame, and because the Supra on the front of the cover was ricey, and the game was released by Ubisoft, so Crave didn't release this game, so therefore it could not. It also couldn't be called Tokyo Xtreme Racer, and Ubisoft were the ones that released it, and they went with Import Tuner Challenge. So it just seemed like it was a generic game with like rice style cars. So I literally just ignored that game on the shelf. Like, I definitely saw it, but I ignored it until I was just bored. Like, I had gotten to the point where I had all the 360 games that I wanted at the time. I'm just like looking for something new. Because I worked at the game store for all that time, so it's like I was up to date on anything that I actually knew that I wanted. So I finally picked this game up, and I turned the case around, and it says Genki on the back, and then it has cars, the dark streets or whatever, and then energy bars at the top. And I'm like, is this game fucking Tokyo Xtreme Racer? This is fucking Tokyo Xtreme Racer. So I buy the game without hesitation, take it home, put it in the Xbox. It is definitely Tokyo Xtreme Racer. Now, unfortunately, it's not a good game for the series to have gone out on. I'm glad that they're making a new one. And like I said, I hope that those issues that I brought up are not a thing. But this particular game, it looks a lot better than everything else in a series. I mean, it should be, because it's on a newer platform than PS2 and Dreamcast. However, it has less cars than Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3. Still licensed cars, but less of them than even 3, which has less than 0 and 2. And then Nagoya and Osaka are out of the game, and unfortunately, they reduced the amount of Tokyo, the amount of the Shudo that you're able to go through as well. So a lot less. It's almost back to the amount that's available in Tokyo Xtreme Racer 1. So, I don't know what, what the actual deal is with that whole thing, but that's the situation, and it is not good. Like I said, it looks the best of the series, which should be obvious, but I don't know. I mean, they were possibly troubled by the time that that game came out. Because, I mean, like I said, Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3 came out as a $20 budget title. And then this one wasn't even released by the same company as well as the PSP. So, I don't know. But, I mean, it's still worth playing. It's still definitely worth playing. Pretty rare of a game. It's going to cost more than it should at the current time. I definitely paid a lot for the Japanese version. Way more than I really wanted to. But, it is what it is. So, yeah. Now, this series is probably the most important series because, it is the reason that I wanted to go to Japan. Now, I used to have other ideas about going to Japan when I was a kid. And then I kind of stopped caring about that whole thing for reasons. And then, when I got older, seeing the Shudo Express drive, and possibly driving on it, if it was possible, was the reason I wanted to go to Japan after that. my new reason. And of course, again, check out my videos where I drove the Evo, the Skyline, the S660 out on the Shudo in real life. Fucking amazing times. Um, so yeah. Now, with this new game coming out, of course, there's a Steam page on it. Nothing else so far, but I'm gonna assume that this game's coming out on PS5 as well. So my next trip to Japan may be when this game comes out. Now, I have to also have the Mustang shipped to Japan. That's a thing for the next time. So once a date is announced, as long as it's not in the winter, I'm not going to go to Japan between like November and February. Even if the game releases, I'm just not going to do it. I do not have fun in that kind of weather. I'll be in my room the whole fucking time. And I'm not going to want to drive and like do that kind of stuff. So as long as the title has a good weather release date, I'll try to do that next trip at that time, because I gotta ship my Mustang. The reason I'm not going this year is because my Evo is not finished, and I need the Evo to be finished to ship the Mustang so I can have a fun car to drive in the meantime, because the car has to be gone for 3 months before I leave and 3 months after I come back. So, that's 6 months without a fun car to drive if one of the cars are down. So the Evo should be getting done here soon, and it'll be ready for me to drive around here when the possibility of the Mustang getting shipped is a thing. And another thing, though, as an aside, is I'm glad that I did not go this year, because, if shipping the Mustang was the thing I wanted to do, I would not be having a good time, because the slave cylinder broke in that car a couple weeks ago. And if I were going to Japan around that October time frame like I did before, that means that the car would be on its way over by now, or in customs, or whatever it's gonna be. And if this slave cylinder was gonna break, it definitely would have broken like the next time that I drove the car, and I would have not probably been able to fix that thing at all, which fucking would have sucked. So kind of glad, if glad could be a thing, I guess, for a situation like that. But yeah, because when this game comes out, if it does have physical PS5 copies or whatever, or Series, probably won't get a Series X version, I'd imagine. Now, I don't think this game is going to be something that you need like a powerful PC for. I mean, my PC has a 4090 and blah blah blah, so it should be perfectly fine. I would love this game to get ray tracing, and I would love for the track to be more open. I would love to be able to like go to Akiba in this game, go to Shinjuku in this game, and have all the path tracing, all those buildings just lighting up your car and your windshield. That would be fucking amazing. But Genki is, double A at best, and a double A Japanese studio is not going to give you the graphics. They're not going to give you the cutting edge graphics, which is, it's a shame, but, it is what it is. So anyway, if the game does come out on, like I said, PS5, the idea would be that I would be in Tokyo or Osaka. I would be in either one of those cities. See, if I do Tokyo, obviously I can go on the Shudo that night, go to Daikoku and do whatever, which would be awesome. But Osaka is my favorite city of the three. of the three big ones. And I wouldn't even consider Kyoto like if I was gonna pick this game up and go have like a nice car day or something like that. I wouldn't even consider Kyoto for that. But Osaka and the Kenjo and whatnot, that would be pretty good as well. But the Shotoku in Tokyo would be the best. So we'll see. I'll see what happens. Just gotta find out the release date and when it's gonna be on PlayStation. Because said I'd love to just pick that game up over there in my own car. Because driving those cars, um, it's fun. The cars from Omoshiro, but the older cars, the ones that people want to drive, they're just not in great condition. It's not Omoshiro's fault. It's just that those are rental cars and people just do whatever. So as you know, I drove the purple or dark blue Skyline GTR R33 the last time, and I post, a guy posted online. So a guy in a group posted online recently, like in the last couple of weeks, that he drove the car, and I'm like, oh yeah, hey, I took that car out, a while back too, and he was like, yeah, man, we were discussing, and he said that it's like, yeah, the car had a grind in the fourth gear and stuff like that when he drove it. I'm like, the car was like kind of junky when I drove it, but it didn't even have a grind in fourth gear at that time, and like now it has a grind in the fourth gear. I'm like, driving those cars is just not fun for that reason, because they are pieces basically. There are some other places that let you rent cars as well, but they cost a lot more, and I'm sure their cars are probably in better condition, like fun to drive, and whatnot. But I'm gonna take I'm not gonna pay twice as much for the same fucking thing, even if the car is cleaner, which will probably make you a little more, like confident in driving the car. Because I almost took the Skyline back when I got into the city, and I had the windows down and the air conditioning off, and I could just hear like all this junk sounding and stuff. So, but anyway, I'll rectify that by taking my own car next time. And that'll be it until, on this subject, until that game comes out. I'll be obviously playing it day one somehow. So, we'll see. Because even if, I'm not going to take a PlayStation 5 over to Japan, but I do have a gaming laptop, which I took the last time. I really didn't play it, but that last time, but I will definitely play Shotoku Battle or Tokyo Xtreme Racer. I don't think it's actually going to be called Shotoku Battle, but we'll see, because even the Genki Twitter account, even in Japanese, it just calls it Tokyo Xtreme Racer. And I know Crave doesn't exist anymore, so they don't have the license to Tokyo Xtreme Racer, the name. So it's probably something like that. They're like, well, it's ours now. We'll call it that. Well, that'll be it for this video. A little different, not driving around at night this time. And we got some nice Tokyo Xtreme Racer music going on in the background. I like it. I like it. And I will be back when I have something else to talk about. Alright, later.